Hello there, my friends. It is I, your boy, Mr. X Dreams. I'm here with a very special presentation, my Halloween special for 2025, something I've been trying to do, but not quite getting there for the last 5 years. And got a nice, long, very interesting story for you today. This is part of a series I call Twisted Tales or Twisted Children's Tales. And what I basically do is take an old story and sort of remix it and put my own little spin on it. And a part of my intent for this is for you to sort of guess what classic children's story that this is based on before the end of the story, before the big reveal. So let me know the exact moment when you figured out what story this was. So anyway, I hope you have a happy and safe Halloween. And before you go out and trick or treat, check out this story. I'll be back to discuss it a little bit after the story, so I hope you enjoy. Madeline awoke in a world upside down. Above her head were the scattered contents of her bushel basket. Apples of various sizes dotted the dark, wet soil among patches of weeds and dead leaves. Prints from bare feet crisscrossed everywhere. Her body swayed gently in the cold winds of early dusk. A tight coil of rough twine rope wrapped around her ankles, digging into her skin. Her old joints ached under the slack of her weight. Her temples felt like they might burst from the pressure of hanging head over heels. With all her strength, she curled upward and tried to undo the knot that bound her to the branch of a mighty oak. It didn't take her long to realize it was no good. The knot was a calling card, a unique variation on a classic double constrictor, known only to a select few. A knot she knew was all but impossible to undo once set in place and under load. Just as she realized this, she noticed a glint of moonlight reflected in an old, silver-bladed knife, tucked into the folds of the rope. Her eyes widened as she pulled it out, and her heart began to race. Mon Dieu! The words escaped her lips with a shudder. She desperately sawed away at the binding until it snapped, leaving her at the full mercy of gravity. She instinctively balled herself up before slamming into the ground with a thud. The earth was hard and cold, showing no consideration for her advanced age. Worrying jolts of pain shot through every limb, and even her organs screamed silently. Despite it all, Madeline knew she had to get home. She tried to scrape herself off the forest floor, her head darting about to find her sense of direction. A searing sensation blasted through her arm and sent her crashing back down after a loud pop. When she pulled her face out of the mud, she realized a jagged ulnar bone had poked through her right forearm, caked in black mud. A primal howl erupted from her chest as she cradled the limb. She clenched the ivory inlaid handle of the silver knife, gathered the now loosened rope, and wrapped it over her back and shoulder, lashing the broken arm to her chest with an agonizing wrench. She knelt on one knee, steadied her breath, and closed her eyes. She locked the pain in her arm into a well-worn box she kept in her mind, focused on the breeze blowing through her snow-white hair, noted the slope of the hill beneath her feet. Her eyes crinkled open and observed the positions of the stars in the sky at the onset of night. With this, she set off toward home as fast as her stiff knees could carry her. As she moved through the woods, the pain in her joints dulled, overcome by a potent mix of adrenaline and force of will. Her steps became lighter and seemed to miss the earth at times, as if stepping on the air itself. Someone or something meant for her to get home late. Injured, not dead. Only one name came to mind. Catherine, the name repeated between her ears, stained with regret and mourning. The voice that spoke the name was not the weathered one she had grown into, but the voice she had in her youth. The longer she ran, the closer she got to home, the quieter the woods became. She found her old ways coming back to her, making her nearly as quiet in her movements as the terrified animals hiding themselves away in the brush. At every turn, she faced a specter from her past. Echoing through the valleys, she heard the ragged, bubbling voice of her sister, pleading to end her misery. Spread across the trees, she saw the bloodstains of a hunt long buried in the far corners of her mind. The salty, metallic flavor of the knife conjured memories of the last time she used it, failing to miss her mark. Perhaps not failing, but choosing not to plunge it deep into her sister's heart. She could still taste the tears she wept over half a century ago on that fateful night. New tears traced the wrinkled paths of her face, drying in the wind as she dashed through the woods. As her old cottage home came into view, peeking through the greenery of the silent forest, a long-lost yet familiar stench in the air assaulted her nostrils, and she wondered if she was too late. Madeline crouched low to the ground, ignoring the throbbing pain in her arm, pushing through the haze of confusion and shock at the situation she had awoken into. Stealthily, she approached a cracked open window of her home, tilting her head to peer inside. Sitting in a dark corner, she saw the mirror image of herself, dressed in her own nightgown. The figure heaved a deep, shuddering breath as it laid in wait, gently swaying back and forth in Madeline's rocking chair. In the failing light, a dim, yellow glow could be seen in the double's eyes. The name came to Madeline's mind again, this time so strongly it almost escaped her lips. She covered her mouth and turned away from the window, her eyes squeezing shut in anguish and disbelief. Just then, her heart sank, and she heard the sound she had been dreading ever since she woke under the great oak tree. Without a second thought, she made her way to a hidden panel on the side of a garden bed. Her heart sank as she realized the flowers she had planted were nowhere to be found. With her good hand, she quietly lifted the panel to reveal a relic from her past, one that would be crucial in the next moment. Young Margot stood on the cobblestone porch, fiddling with the long, puffy braids of auburn hair that laid on her shoulders. She straightened her bright red frock and fluffed the frilly white apron she wore over it. Clouds of wheat flour and powdered sugar plumed all around as she did, causing her to sneeze. The twine basket she held in the crook of her elbow almost lost its precious cargo, a pair of small cakes she baked to enjoy with her grandmother. The house seemed quieter than usual, as did the whole forest on the way there. When she peered into a window, she noticed all the lavender and wolfsbane kept along the windowsills had been rather unceremoniously torn out. Splashes of fresh, dark soil were scattered all around the place in a display she had never expected to see at her granny's cottage. As Margot went to open the door, a deep, dark chill ran down her spine, a sensation she had never felt before, but it was undeniable. Her brow furrowed, and she found her hand unwilling to move toward the brass knob on the door to her granny's house. She took a moment, shook her head, and reminded herself that there was nothing to worry about. After all, Granny always said her home was made specially to keep them both safe whenever she visited the countryside. She forced her hand to touch the knob, but noticed the door was already open. Before she could question it, her granny's voice came from somewhere inside the quaint house, easing her troubled mind. "Is that a delicious treat I smell at my door?" "Yes, Granny. I bought us some cakes," she said with glee. "Do come in, my dear girl," the voice replied. Relief washed over Margot's little heart as she finally stepped through the threshold and into the cozy front room. She found her grandmother rocking gingerly in her favorite chair, staring at her with a faint, oddly strained smile. Young Margot knew her granny was not feeling well as of late, but as the old woman peered at her from the shaded corner of the room, lit only by the last lingering rays of sunlight and flickering candles, there was an uncanny air about her. Something was different, but the girl couldn't quite put her finger on what. If nothing else, The elderly woman seemed healthier than the girl expected, hearty and well-fed even. "My Granny, you look so well. Mother told me you were recovering from a bout of something or other." Her voice, full of the innocence of youth, pointed out curiously. The shadowed figure in the corner stared as if in deep thought. Margot thought she saw the glint of a tear rolling down her grandmother's stone-still face. "So beautiful. You look just like we did, ages ago," the old woman said softly. "Where did you get those green eyes from?" she questioned playfully. "What do you mean, Granny?" "Why, I guess from Grandpapa," Margot replied, confused. Don't you remember him?" "Right about now. I wonder if coming here was the right thing to do. Maybe my bitterness got the better of me. Too late now. In any case." The woman's voice seemed to deepen and scratch as the words spilled out. A shaky breath escaped the old woman's lungs as she tightened her grip on the rocking chair's flimsy arms. The wood began to crack and splinter. In the dim, golden candlelight, her fingers seemed to buckle and stretch. The coarse sounds of groaning and splintering bones filled the room as the rocking chair bowed under increasing weight. Granny's legs spread apart, and her back twisted over on itself with a great snap, and she let out a horrifying moan. Her shoulders tilted and her neck broke, leaving her head a dangling, useless-looking appendage with eyes rolled back. Dark blood seeped from her teeth and from under her fingernails, which slowly grew into sharp lengths of obsidian. Margot watched, paralyzed with fear as Granny's writhing body stood, suddenly towering over her like never before. The hanging neck began to right itself and the face elongated, forming a crude, horrifically disfigured snout full of long, pointed teeth, more than it seemed designed to contain. The jaw dropped open and slammed shut with a sound that jolted Margot's body, causing her to fall down onto her bottom, unable to take her eyes off the monstrosity that stumbled around in front of her. A hot billow of steam wafted from the hulking creature's mouth, and she felt soiled wherever it touched her. With her body unable to move, her mind raced through countless questions. She puzzled over what was happening, and wondered if it was all a bad dream. Suddenly, the monster was staring at her, motionless. She thought at first it was standing still, but then she realized she was living a single, drawn-out moment. It had happened to her once before, when she fell from a high tree branch. She counted the leaves on each branch as she fell, and just before a good, strong branch presented itself, she felt a little tingle that made her notice it. She had all the time in the world to grab hold of it and save herself from a nasty fall. This time, in her grandmother's cottage, cowering before a beast she had only ever heard of in stories, the big, bad wolf. The tingle was telling her to get up and roll forward. Margot threw herself head over heels and tumbled between the creature's bent backward legs, just before its massive hands came crashing down where she once laid. At the same time, the oiled fabric and wooden frame of the window burst apart, revealing a familiar silhouette. Granny Madeline dove through the window, landing with the grace of a house cat. She crouched between Margot and the wolf, blood dripping from her arm, which was bound to her chest with rope. A silver knife was clenched in her teeth, and her uninjured left hand held an ancient-looking crossbow. "Catherine," she pleaded, "not like this." She looked back at the scared girl for a moment with pleading eyes, then back to the beast. "Not like this." A low growl shook the walls of the old cabin as the monster began to speak. So now you're ready to do it. Is that right, sister?" The wolf's tone was almost joyful. Madeline stood, with her shoulders raised like a scared cat. The crossbow was trained on the massive staring face, wavering as it spoke. "Why now? And not when I begged you to stop this? When you decided to trade one big bad wolf for another, instead of completing our sacred mission?" The creature's claws tore across the floor, destroying the boards. "Catherine!" Madeline's voice was hoarse and shaken with guilt. She pulled the trigger, but nothing happened but a dry, rusted click. Mad! Madeline gasped. The wolf's eyes flashed yellow in the failing light of dusk. With a violent motion, it spun the full weight of its body, sweeping its massive tail across the room like a bludgeon, knocking over candlesticks and plunging them all into darkness. Margot continued to watch on in horror as her granny disappeared into the gloom. Metal clanged against claws of bone. Even as her eyes adjusted to the low light, it was hard to keep track. The once gentle and frail woman she knew leapt about the room like a wild hare, swiveling and diving in every which way. Every movement she made was calculated, and she never missed a step. The monster's radiant yellow eyes darted around like mad, seemingly in a perpetual state of pursuit, never quite catching up. Madeline threw herself into a one-handed cartwheel as the wolf swiped, just missing her legs. When Granny landed, she was in the corner near her bed. She pulled a gnarled rope with all her might, and a series of cuckoo clocks all opened along the walls at once, followed by a lot of hollow clicks. Margot looked back to the beast, who stood staring at Granny with a haunting, ear-to-ear grin across its bloody, gray snout. A disturbing chuckle erupted from the creature's freakish windpipes, as suddenly it charged with a balled fist toward the corner where Granny stood. Madeline darted away with lightning speed, rolling along the cracked floorboards and sprinting through the door leading to the kitchen. With a smirk and an arrogant huff, the wolf followed her, ignoring Margot. "What little of me remains, I must say, is happy to see you built our house, Madeline. It really is a thing to behold. All these traps," the wolf said, as its massive paw scraped across the wall, knocking down the clocks, revealing crude holes hidden behind. "Tell me, Maddie, do you still hunt?" These words came in a softer, more familiar voice. As the beast disappeared into the kitchen after Granny, Margot finally got the nerve to quietly get to her feet. She searched in the dim light for something, anything that could make her more than just a helpless observer. She reached into one of the holes and found a small, unloaded bow. She checked under the mattress, and she couldn't find the butcher's knife that should have been tucked away there. When Madeline's pained voice rang out from the kitchen, Margot decided to go to her aid, empty-handed. Madeline's back heaved as her ragged breaths tore at her already burning lungs. She tried to speak, but the miles-long flight through the woods had taken a toll on her voice. "Sister," the wolf hissed, speaking the word Madeline wanted to say, its twisted vocal cords emanating a voice steeped in hate. "How can you call me that? What kind of sister allows this, leaving me to wander the earth a half a century as an abomination? The very thing we once hunted together." Decades of animosity could be felt as her words boomed across the once cozy room. Madeline whispered scratchy words. "Catherine, I'm so sorry. I was weak then. Let me be strong now, my sweet sister. I see you in there, behind those haunted eyes. Let me end this." The wolf's eyes went pale, their fierce gleam quieting for a moment as it crept toward Madeline, who stood propped up against the stove, chest heaving. "I love you, sister. I always have," Granny said between panting breaths. "I never wanted to see you like this, but I know it's my fault." Straining with every motion, she raised her hand and pulled down on a candle holder that jutted inconspicuously from the wall. The implement tilted down and a series of doors opened across the ceiling. Carved wooden spouts cranked down into place, followed by a steady flow of black liquid which rained down, covering everything in the room. As the substance soaked into the matted gray fur of the towering wolf woman, it stood stoically, staring with an air of what almost seemed like acceptance. Pitch," she snarled, licking her thin lips. "Vervain and dill. A lovely infusion, but no good for fighting a werewolf." With a heavy step, Catherine moved closer to her sister. "You should have known that. Or did you think I would never find you? One never knows what beasts may come, sister. The pitch will do its job. May your soul forgive me." Madeline cranked the candle holder further, and wooden gears clicked sharply in the wall. A hollow thump shook the rafters above their heads. Another clawed step rocked against the floor. "What's the matter? Has someone removed your sparking powder?" Another lurching pace. "What a shame." The wolf lunged onto Madeline, smashing the rustic wooden cabinetry. Its giant maw half swallowed her as it sank its massive teeth into her shoulder, back, chest, and neck at once. The beast clenched its jaws, cracking her ribs and biting through her arm before ruthlessly flinging her motionless body to the ground. Madeline's weak, gurgling voice echoed faintly in Margot's ears as, again, she watched on, paralyzed in fear. "I'll take my leave now, sister," the wolf uttered, shooting a beaming glance directly at Margot's eyes, the girl's presence clearly not forgotten. "You should talk to your little visitor before it's too late. Maybe she can do what you could not." The monster walked toward the broken front door. Her steps staggered as she slowly and agonizingly began to shrink down into a spitting image of the kindly grandmother. Bones re-broke themselves, snapping and jutting into place, sending spurts of dark blood into the air. By the time she reached the door, her form had become frail once again, the aged picture of an old woman. But the twisted grin on her face betrayed her true nature as something far more terrible. The image of her granny's face staring at her with those putrid yellow eyes burned into Margot's mind. In a soft, grandmotherly voice, Catherine finished her thought. "Or maybe you'll give me a fair fight next time we meet. It matters not to me either way. Goodbye." Margot wasn't sure who Catherine had addressed with her departing words. After the beast had gone, Margot finally found herself able to move again. She dashed across the floor, desperately pulling at the broken wood until her grandmother's bloodied form was visible. With a pained groan, she pulled the woman's limp body out of the wreckage. The old, defeated form looked nothing more than a carcass one might find in the forest. As Margot begged her grandmother to wake up, she heard a strained gasp of air and felt a weak rising of her chest. Madeline's now mangled left arm wobbled off the floor, reaching out feebly toward the silver knife. Margot quickly retrieved the knife and placed it in her granny's hand. But as soon as the silver touched her, a guttural, almost doubled howl erupted from her with shocking intensity. Margot's jaw fell open as Granny's eyes began to roll in their sockets, glinting with a pale golden light. The young girl's heart shattered into countless pieces as she realized what she would have to do. Madeline would never want to be a monster. Her broken forearm bone began to slide back into place. Margot watched the wound mend itself with unnatural speed. Panting, she turned the knife on her grandmother's chest. The tip of the blade shook as the girl sobbed, struggling with the impossible choice before her. Just as her will began to falter, before she lost her nerve and fled the house, a weathered hand came to wrap around hers. The old woman's eyes fluttered to life, their yellow glow brightening slowly as she focused on Margot's pained expression. "It's okay, child," Madeline said, an arcane vitality building inside her. "I never told anyone this, but many years ago, before even your mother was born, I sat exactly where you sit right now." She motioned to the open door. "In my moment, I chose to run away. I hoped I would never have to face it again. But look where it got me." Margot's eyes filled with tears. "I ran for years and years, hoping to escape, to start a new life. And, my sweet girl, you and your mother, you gave that to me. I am thankful." The girl's eyes squeezed shut. "I know I have no right to ask you, but there's no choice, and there's no time. If I do this myself, the curse will remain. I need your help." Madeline caressed Margot's face and gently adjusted the collar of her red dress. "You've always been a brave girl. I need you to be braver now than ever. When it's done, look under my bed. Find at my journals. Learn how this world truly works. She coughed, black blood sputtering onto her chin. I never saw a hunter in your mother, but in you, I sense greatness. My little Red Riding. The old woman's voice trailed off, and her eyes widened in a flash of fear before finding Margot's face again. Madeline's hand grasped Margot's with a new, shocking strength. Together, they plunged the knife in, a trickle of tinged blood flowing from the wound as the woman's breaths became ragged. I love you, Margot. Please, tell your mother she will be in my heart for all eternity, right next to you, she said as the light faded from her eyes. Hurry along now, before I turn all sour. Margot's small hands touched the body tentatively, as if expecting her to wake up again. In the moonlight, she could see the fresh wounds opening back up. The unnatural vitality left the old woman's tired frame as her chest sank for the last time, leaving the young girl alone in the dark. Sometime later, a little boy walks through the woods with a smile on his face. Sunshine dapples the forest floor through the treetops. He's so close to the lovely music he hears in the distance. A voice as sweet as honey seems to dance through the trees into his ears, beckoning him as the increasingly frantic calls of his mother fade into the distance. He arrives at the mouth of a serene lake, staring at the gentle waves as they kiss the shore. Suddenly, a pale face stares at him from among the ripples. A girl with skin as white as powdered snow. He wonders how she breathes with only her eyes peeking above the surface. The song is all he can hear as his shoes soak in the frigid water. The cold saps away at him as he trudges in, the beautiful, delicate face always seeming to be just out of reach. As he feels the icy chill rise to his chest, a hand comes to rest softly on his shoulder, snapping him out of his trance. Suddenly, his body screams at him about the deathly cold water. His nose and lips turn blue and he begins to shiver. Go and find your mother, little one, an older girl's voice commands him. Her tone is caring, but leaves no room for even the shadow of an argument. The boy looks up at her and feels a pang of terror for just a moment. Something about this girl makes him want to flee, screaming, despite her kind tone. The girl wears a dark red cloak, which soaks up the cold water. A bushy, gray pelt of long fur adorns her shoulders, reminding him of a shaggy old dog that lives on the farm at the edge of town. In the darkness of her hood, a single emerald green eye reflects a warm drop of sunlight. The girl smiles gingerly, pulling the ragged hood back, revealing a head of auburn hair against a tanned, weathered face that seemed aged a bit beyond her years. The light reveals her other eye, unseeing, clouded, pale, and scarred. Run along now, she says, this time giving him a gentle push toward the shore. He staggers out of the water, keeping his eyes on the girl. As he goes up the hill, the pretty face in the lake begins to rise up, revealing a horrible sight. An elongated neck, lined with vicious fangs that seem to reach out for some unseen prey. A twisted abomination of the female form, undulating in a perverse display no child should ever have to witness. A faint sparkle of light catches his eye as the red-hooded girl raises a curved blade from beneath her cloak, and the boy tumbles over the hill, rolling down, until coming to rest at his mother's feet. She picks him up, gasping desperately, holding her son to her bosom, wondering why he can't take his eyes off the hilltop whence he fell. Hello again, my friends. If you're still here, thank you so much for watching the whole video and experiencing the full story that I created for you there. I spent a lot of time doing the sound effects and writing and editing and all that stuff. So, let me know what you thought. Personally, I'm really proud of this one. It's one of the favorites that I've done so far. I've done several others on the channel if you want to go back and check those out. But if you did enjoy it, make sure you leave a like, subscribe, check in on the channel once in a while because it seems like the notifications pretty pretty much never go out to my subscribers. And again, let me know what you thought down in the comments. I want to know the exact moment of when you figured out what this story was really about. Oh, and by the way, before I forget, if you're still here at this point in the video, I have a special code word for you so that I can tell who's really watching till the end. OG subscribers, OG dreamers might remember this tactic that I use to identify the most ride or die members. All those bone-shattering sound effects really creeped me out, but at the same time, it kind of made me think of Snap, Crackle, and Pop. So, if you survived all the way to the end of the video, use the code word Rice Krispies in your comment down below so I can see you. Once again, my friends, I hope you have a great Halloween and fall holiday season, whatever you're doing for this end of October, beginning of November timeframe. Be safe, treat each other well, try to be a good person, be the best you can. That's all we can really do. Take care, my friends. I'm Mr. X, and may your nights be full of dreams. All right. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, don't forget to like and share. If you made it to the very end, you're exactly the kind of subscriber I'm looking for. Don't forget to turn on those notifications. That way, you can catch the live show and discuss the stories with me. Your input might even appear in my next video. Last thing, if you heard a code word after the story, type it in a comment down below so I know who the real dreamers are. Take care, my friend. Until next time.